Welcome to Vital Signs. I'm your host, Jen Gaudet, and we're here to talk about your greatest asset, your health. We're all about peak human performance, and that is really taking care of our everything: physical, spiritual, social, emotional, financial, health, and everything in between. Today, we're going to explore the power of giving back, how social impact, financial literacy, and mentorship not only change the lives of others, but also transform our own. You're in for a treat because joining us is Cathy Dimarchos, a global impact leader, financial expert, and advocate for empowering individuals through education and leadership. With decades of experience in business and social enterprise, she's dedicated her life to helping marginalized communities thrive, embedding financial literacy and leadership into programs that create long-term change. Welcome to the show, Cathy.
Hi, thanks, Jen. It's absolute joy to be here.
I'm so looking forward to this. Ever since we spoke before, I couldn't wait to get you on to share. We often think of giving back as charity, but it's so much more. Let's start with how you're using financial literacy and leadership to create lasting impacts in the areas that you're going into currently.
I think I actually start with, instead of actually looking at it as paying back, as paying forward. And I think that small change actually places a very different importance, because it's then about a choice, an intentional choice, that I actually want to contribute to something so that there is a change, as opposed to feeling like I need to pay back because I've received something. So that's, I think, the biggest shift as to why it's more actually about how I contribute and what the impact is on me, and then ultimately how I can actually change the lives of those that I actually work with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and I love it. I love it. The paying forward sort of mentality, and you and I, we've talked about some of the things that you're doing, and one of the things you do is you embed all of your education, all of the experience that you have in financial leadership, along with that mindset and leadership training. So why is that holistic approach so important? Why isn't it just about financial literacy, but we have to think about our mindset and some of the other soft skills and some of that all the other secret sauce that goes into it when we're looking to have impact?
So I look at it as, it's actually about the whole of us. So it's the relationship that we have with money. Um, if we don't do that, it's purely looked at and absorbed as a transaction. And I think that also creates a blockage in the way that we then engage. So some of the things that I actually do is work with female-owned farmers, so at grassroots or women-owned businesses, and actually allow them to understand how have they actually looked at money, whether it actually be from a child or through what they have actually learned. So when I'm looking at female-owned farmers, they look at what they do as, that's just what they do, not necessarily for, you know, the actual agriculture work that they do, the farming, for it to actually be life-changing. It is planting these particular, herbs or products or crops, because that's what they've always done, as opposed to understanding the nuance of what they could actually do and expanding that beyond their own farming. So if I can give you an example, on one of the projects, I was actually invited to be out in very remote areas in Tanzania, and the training was actually provided on the premise of allowing these female farmers to understand finance, as in financial literacy. But I said to the particular NGO, please allow me to do it my way, because if we do, then it actually will become a generational transformation. So, in this, it was actually about going out to their specific farms, having a look at what is it that they're growing, you know, um, how they are actually within their communities, and then actually understanding them as individuals. So it wasn't just about the training, It was actually about them, the whole of them, and how I could better understand, who they were and their particular skills, individual skills outside of the farming. That then enables me to bring them together with the premise of how can we actually create a co-op where each of you are actually then passing on your individual skills outside of the farm, and then actually bringing, the buyers back to the table to say this is now actually a co-op. You're buying from a larger group. You actually are enhancing the quality of the product because they're sharing skills and knowledge. And then by pooling together, we can actually get them that higher price, for a number of reasons, including what I've just shared. That changes the dynamics. That actually also gives them a network. So there's so much more than just handing over that information of this is what financial literacy is about.
And you're talking about shared resources, and we literally just talked about this in the previous show, about if we don't have the economic or the financial ability to make different choices, maybe like what we see here, you're working 2 or 3 jobs, you're a single parent, you're burned out, there's like you still trying to struggle to make ends meet, and there's no support network. It's about reaching out to your peers and combining resources, because when you combine resources with your peers, a lot of times you're able to, like, the sum is greater than the sum of the whole is greater than all of the parts, and so you're able to leverage that community, if you will. And so it sounds to me like it's not just about it really is, it's about empowering them to share resources and shift to that abundance mindset instead of scarcity. So let me ask you this, because one of the things we talked about is how much our own perspective shifts when we go and we go with an intention of making an impact on the world, or helping someone out, or a community out. But it changes us completely in how we look at things, our perspective, and everything. So talk to me about everyday individuals watching this show, regardless of their own financial situation. How can they contribute to social impact in a meaningful way that they'll be able to see and reap the rewards, that we have seen when we've done some of these actions ourselves?
I think at the core of, who we are as people is that we actually want to belong. And our sense of belonging is often actually an external perception. But we create that sense of belonging by actually paying forward. When we can give the smallest, of insight to somebody, that actually reshapes who they are, but we've actually become part of that. And that's the way that I actually look at social impact. It is not just about the money. In fact, the money is probably the least impact, that is created. It is actually about the giving of your time and the sharing of those little nuances that only you actually have, that genuinely changes the lives of others. And I often say, in whatever it is that I'm doing, so, I have actually shared this knowledge with, 25, 75, of you. You can do exactly the same. And that shift in mind instantly, becomes part of this ripple. We can actually then, you know, create such a big ripple effect that many lives can actually change. I may not necessarily know the lives that I actually touch, because it does actually go out to so many, and so therefore I become part of that bigger change. So belonging, that's what ultimately changes. I no longer just belong in, that little circle that I have actually lived in. It now actually ripples out into the world. And I guess that's how I have a global footprint. It's, I know you know somebody else, and that actually goes out to an entire network. That's the bigger impact.
Yeah, I definitely, I couldn't agree more. And what I immediately think about, and it's kind of a little different vein, but You know, kindness doesn't cost anything. And when we're looking at that belonging, like we don't know, sometimes it's that smile when you're walking your child to the school bus, that smile to somebody else is what they needed that day. You never know the impact that you have. Maybe it's, you know, holding the door for someone or offering to carry in, you know, one of their bags or something like that. We never know what that person is experiencing on the other side. And when we share our kindness, or as you said, our insight or any aspect of ourselves, the ripple effect is tremendous. And you know, it's interesting that you said that, because I have people who will come up to me and I don't even know, I don't remember an interaction with them, but they'll come to me and they say, you know, the day that I really needed a friend, you were there. And I'm like, really? I mean, what did I do? I'm just me, you know, you don't think about that, but it's those everyday interactions that make such an impact on people sometimes. And we don't always hear it back, but it does ripple out and have a greater impact. So if you're watching at home, a simple way that you can start giving back today is sharing your insight. It's sharing a smile. It's sharing kindness, even if you don't feel like you have the resources yourself. Kindness is free. And that's one way that you can establish that community, that belonging, and change that for yourself. We do have to take a brief break, but we'll be right back after these messages.